The dividends and the stock buybacks means that wealth is flowing out of the bank. So when they get into the next crisis, the money is not there to get them through it, right? So they are spending their savings on something that they can't immediately or when necessary turn around and recapture. So the consequence to all of this deceit was nobody went to jail. They paid a few fines, but they're still allowed to ship money out of the bank to shareholders and support their stock price. Wells Fargo has acknowledged problems in just about every major business line serving consumers. You might recall that, with their aggressive tactics, they were signing people up for things that they didn't even know that they were being signed up for, and being charged fees that they didn't even know that they were paying fees for. Also did things with the autos, etc. It's a whole bunch of different stuff. And they got busted. They used to have such a squeaky clean reputation while they were doing all of this. But don't worry, because you got Social Security there. A lot of people depend on Social Security. And for many, good news is that they're going to boost the senior Social Security, because part of the reason why they had to jury-rig the inflation numbers is because Social Security benefits, or the increase thereof, are based upon inflation. So they didn't really want that to happen, but they can't very well hide it now. So they're boosting that payout. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, because a lot of seniors actually really depend on their Social Security benefits. But this is a pay-as-you-go program. So that means that we taxpayers that currently pay into Social Security from our payroll taxes, this is part of the problem with the pandemic, because a lot fewer people were working. So since the benefits are based upon inflation, and so those are increasing, but in the meantime, you have workers, not as many workers contributing to this fund, could create a little bit of a problem. You see what I'm saying? This is a self-funded program. And when there were excess funds, well, then the government used to borrow from those funds and spent them and left bonds in their wake. Social Security, a government Ponzi scheme headed for collapse. Yeah, I'm really sorry to say this, but the reality is that this has been on an unsustainable path. It's been in deficit for a while. I'm going to show you that in a second. But again, it is a pay-as-you-go system. So back in 1950, there were 16 and a half workers to pay beneficiaries. Through July of 2021, there are 2.8. I'm not sure how accurate these numbers are, to be perfectly honest with you, with the huge drop-off that we experienced in 2020 in labor force participation, which is who funds Social Security. But okay, this is according to the Social Security Office. I can't prove otherwise. We'll go with it. But you really do need to know that Social Security is not a right. It does not matter what you think, but legally it is not a right. And Congress can and has changed the rules. So if they're going to continue this Ponzi scheme, this game going, then they're going to have to raise taxes, decrease benefits, or both. So, basically what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm sorry, but you better not be counting on Social Security. And even if they don't take it away from us, with what's happening with the dollar and the loss of purchasing power, even with that big new increase that Social Security recipients are going to get, it is not keeping pace with the level of inflation. Now remember, when they talk about inflation as being transitory, well, quite honestly, what they're really talking about is that the rate and the speed of inflation won't stay up, not that the prices will come back down. We are losing our rights. And if you look all around the world and look at what's happening in Australia, you know, does it really look a whole lot different than what's happening in China? No, unfortunately, it really doesn't. Governments and central banks want distance from their policy. They want their policy to be brought out into the world by employers, retailers, anybody but them, because then you don't connect those dots. But let me tell you, since it's in almost every paper the IMF ever writes how they like this distance, I think a lot of that is happening right now. So it is dividing and conquering, because actually I'm going back here. What really bothers me about this one is Texas authorizes citizens to enforce the new abortion law. Citizens. It's one thing to have that law. It's another thing to get your neighbor to rat out the clinic or the individual. This is the part that bothers me, because it really is dividing and conquering. So we're doing the battles while they are robbing us blind, removing all of our rights, and we don't see it because we're too busy looking at other things. I may or may not agree with you. I mean, if it were up to me, McDonald's would not exist, because that is not good for you. But I will defend your right to make that choice, even though a lot of it is perception management. I will defend your rights to make, even the ACLU defended the right of those that would have hate speech out there. Because if you take away the rights for one group, guess what that does? It opens the door to take away the rights for everybody. And that's what I see happening on a global basis in this country as well as everywhere else. And it scares the Hades out of me. It seriously scares me to death, because we don't even realize that we are volunteering our rights. We need to come together in community and stand strong, or we will have no rights. That is why this and this is so important for everybody to hold, because this is real money and it's invisible money.